I came to India when I was very young. Uh, when I was a child, when I was an adolescent, I wasn't happy. I had questions which I didn't even know how to phrase a question to myself. There was just an emptiness in me. There was a thirst in me. There was something that was missing in me, and I felt, I was knocking my head against the wall when I was a child. When I was educated, mostly in Catholic schools and Catholic boarding schools in Europe, in France and Europe. I had a certain amount of mysticism in me. When I was very young, I had an attraction towards uh, Catholicism, towards Christianity. But of course, as I grew an adolescent, I could see that it did not answer my question. And then when I had just completed my 18 years, I just turned 19, I heard from a friend whose father was the last governor of Pondicherry. Pondicherry used to be a French colony, a very small French colony. There were five small towns that belonged to Pondicherry also. And so my best friend's father was the last governor of French India. And he told me that there was a caravan of cars driving from Paris to Pondicherry to start a city called Auroville. And I didn't know anything about India, nor about Auroville, nor about Sri Aurobindo. I was not really interested. I mean, outwardly, my mind, maybe was not connected enough to my inner being, so it didn't click for me. But I thought it was a good way to discover myself, to go around the world and see who I was and what was the world about, and become mature. So I decided to take this caravan. So we drove, in those days, it was possible to drive through so many countries, from France to Germany, Austria, Yugoslavia, Greece, Turkey, Istanbul. There is some controversy about the Saint Sophia Basilica, which I visited when I went to Istanbul. Extraordinary city, Istanbul. It's like the gate of the East. From Europe, I was a European, I was a Frenchman, Catholic educated, and suddenly, from Greece you come to Turkey, and this is like a different world. It's like I nearly stayed in Istanbul. It was so beautiful. I thought, oh, and those days were where people used to take drugs and smoke hashish, and this was the 60s, the decade of the hippies. Wonderful people, the hippies, by the way. So, but I had a friend who said I was underage. In those days, 21 was, you were becoming an adult only when you were 21. So I was 19, just turned 19. So my passport was not with me. So luckily, the person who headed the caravan, there were 5 cars in this caravan, said, no, you can't stay. You're too young. You have to come with us. So we continued, and from Turkey went to Iran. My first input of Iran was not as positive as Turkey. And then from Iran, Afghanistan. Afghanistan was an extraordinary country. I thought people were very noble there. In those days, all the men were carrying guns. And the Soviet, I met the roads, they were like airstrips. All the roads in Afghanistan, those that I don't know now, were like, landing strips. And the sunsets were extraordinary also. So Afghanistan was also a strong experience. And then, you climb the Khyber Pass, through which all the invasions of India came, from Alexander the Great to all the Mughals and the Turks and the Afghans and the Iranians, all that terrible, traumatic input came through the Khyber Pass. Of course, the history of the Hindu Kush, when Prithviraj Chauhan was bitten, his Venka Gauri took about 300,000 to 400,000 slaves, women, children, mostly young people, on the Hindu Kush. And it's so high that it was winter and most of them died. So So it was called, I didn't know then when I crossed it, it was called the Hindu Kush, the Massacre of Hindus in memory of this Holocaust. And so we crossed the Hindu Kush, came into Pakistan. You know, Pakistan very much like India actually, except for the religion. I've been to Pakistan many times after that as a journalist, and it always struck me that Indians and Pakistanis eat the same. I mean, at least the North Indians and the Pakistanis eat the same, dress the same, often speak the same language. And and from Lahore to Delhi, it's very short. It's 300-400 kilometers. So we used to drive at night because we had bought second-hand vans and they were not in good condition. The cars also, so it was cooler for the engines to drive at night. So we drove in the night from Lahore to Delhi, and we came to Delhi, in September, early September 1969. Um, it's coming to India. We spent our first night in the Ashram of Delhi. Now the Ashram of Delhi in those days was in the countryside. What's called now the Mother School, which is a huge school in Delhi, one of the best schools in India, I think, was then a small house, ancient house, and there were still fields around it. So we came in the morning to Delhi and landed in Connaught Place and had some coffee there. And I can't say that I felt anything particular coming to India. But in the evening, we spent the night in this ashram, my first night in India. And it was evening, and as I said, there were fields, there was sunset. And I had a book translated by the mother, who was a French woman, who was a companion of Sri Aurobindo, called The Life Divine. So it was some chapters were translated in French. And I climbed on top of one of the vans. And I looked, India is so peaceful in the evening. The farmers are coming home and the birds are singing, there is a sunset, everything starts, slowing down. And so there was this sunset, and I opened that book, and as I said, I knew nothing about India, nothing about spirituality. And I read a few lines. I don't remember what they were. And now what I'm going to say is a little bit mental, but in those days, in that moment, it was extremely strong. I read a few lines, and I knew that I had come to a country where there was an infinite knowledge. And I felt that I would stay for the rest of my, intuition. Intuition is not, it's not like a thought. It's like, it's a higher thought that comes to you. You can't say that it's a divine thought, but it's a higher thought that comes to you, and that, you get it instantly. It's like, you understand instantly. So I understood that there was knowledge in this country, that I would stay there for the rest of my life, and that I would defend this country in a few seconds. It was a very powerful experience, and very, very moving also. I had it two, 3, 4 times, again in different places in India. I had it in Almora, when I went to Almora 30 years ago. Above Almora, actually, on the ridge above Almora. I had it in Pune. So, but this was the strongest. There was knowledge in this country. There was a body. In those days, I didn't know about Mother India, but I felt that there was a physical body to this country, and in that body was a very precious knowledge for which I'd looked all my life. Now, I'm putting words now, but this was a spiritual experience, strong one. So then from Delhi, we only spent one night. From Delhi, we drove to Pondicherry. As I said, 2 of the vans were broken, and we had to drag them with ropes. So it was a long process. And in those days, the roads were very small. Every time a lorry or a bus came, you had to move on the side. So it took us 2 weeks to drive from Delhi to Pondicherry. We drove to Pondicherry and arrived in Auroville, which in those days was a bare plateau of red earth above the Indian Ocean. And I met the mother of Pondicherry. As I said, the mother was a French lady. She was a great yogini. She was Sri Aurobindo's companion. Sri Aurobindo had died in 1950. And the mother had continued his work both in the Ashram of Pondicherry, in the Sri Aurobindo Ashram, and starting Auroville, for which we had come. So I met the mother, and this was my second shock. And she was as I said, she was a yogini, and she looked in my eyes, and I felt that she looked very deep into me, and I was like, completely dazed. It was a very strong experience again. So then I stayed in the ashram. I felt that though I had come for Orville, the first 8 years I spent in the Shobino ashram because I wanted to be with Indians. I felt that India was something which I wanted to dive deep into. So I stayed for the 8 years in the ashram. The mother died in the end of 1973. It was a great shock because when the guru dies, you feel like you're an orphan. So it was a difficult time when she died and didn't know what to do. I had done a little bit of journalism and uh, and photography before leaving for India. So I started freelancing in the south, doing some features, photo features. My first feature was on Karare Payat, which is a martial art from Kerala, which with Buddhism, went to China and became Kung Fu, then to Japan and became Karate. So very interesting village martial art. And I did a few other features in the south. And politics is life. I thought politics is the most important. So then slowly I came to Delhi and became a political journalist. So this is how I became a journalist and started writing books. This is my story in short. As I became a political journalist, I realized that the history of India has not been written as it happened, particularly when I started covering Kashmir and I saw how the Hindus of Kashmir were very peaceful people, were chased out of the valley of Kashmir. I'm talking about the valley of Kashmir for no reason except religion. It opened my eyes and I started studying Indian history, which I didn't know very well because I became a journalist by accident, the same way I came to India by accident or fate or whatever you name it. So then I started studying Indian history. I was very touched by the plight of the Kashmiri Pandits because I spent quite a lot of time in the Valley of Kashmir. In those days, mostly it was under curfew. That is, you needed a pass to go out, and as a journalist, of course, you would get a pass. And I had interviewed some of the people who were killed by the first militants, the first separatists, some of the leading the leaders of the Hindus in Kashmir. I had interviewed them. I had come to Kashmir before the strife as a tourist, and of course appreciated the beauty of the Valley of Kashmir again, Srinagar, the Dal Lake, Gulmarg, the mountains. And so as a journalist, I witnessed the exodus of the Kashmiri Pandit, the killings, and it really moved me. I can't say it was a profound experience as I had when I came to Delhi, but it really touched me that people, for no other reason that they were from a different religion, could be chased out from their ancestral land, which they had been for generation and generation, and lose everything. In few days, few weeks, 400,000 Hindus of Kashmir fled and became refugees in their own country. Again, I'm saying words today, but on that moment, I was very touched. I was moved. I remember a temple in Srinagar. It was one of the last Hindu temples. There was a small Ganesh temple, and it had been attacked 2 days before by militants, and it was heavily guarded by BSF and the army. So I was probably, in those days, all the journalists in Delhi, in those days, there were a lot of foreign journalists in India, proper, accredited, paid foreign journalists. Of course, there was Mark Tully, who was the most famous journalist of all, a BBC correspondent. There was not much television yet. There was Doordarshan, but not much else. But there were many, many foreign journalists, and all of us would go from Delhi to Srinagar. There was only one hotel open. It was called the Aduz Hotel on the bank of the river Jhelum. And so all of us would stay there on and off, on and off. Most of the journalists were interested, again led by Mark Tully, who was like a beacon, you know, he was like a legend already. So what he said and what he did was something that most people followed. So most of the journalists were interested in the human rights of the Muslims. All of us are drivers who were Muslims, and they acted both as interpreters and, you know, are linked with the militants, and they gave us information. So most of us would, you know, lean towards the Muslim side. But, you know, I was, I'm known as a defender of the Hindus because, as I said, you know, they are the holders of the last knowledge, which is alive in this world of who am I, what happens when I die, and what is life, what is karma, what is an avatar. So I had learned about this knowledge through Sri Aurobindo, and it was very precious to me. So I am known as a defender of the Hindus. So even though in those days in Srinagar, I would be more interested to cover what was happening to the Hindus, and rightfully so, because in those days, Mark Tully and all the others would say, India is lying. No, Pakistan is not sponsoring and, you know, training and arming these Kashmiri, Indian Kashmiri militants, you know, who come back from the Pakistan side and start killing Hindus. It's not true. And I felt it was true. Again, it was an intuition. It was not based on an experience, but I felt it was true. So I went to that temple, you know, where there was the last bandits and priest. I mean, the last priest, you know, and I was extremely touched by their story. You know, I was really, really moved. You know, most of my other journalists, I was there with an Italian journalist. Most of the other journalists had gone to see a guy called Shabir Shah. Now, Shabir Shah is in jail now in Delhi. He's a separatist, but in those days he was a hero to most of the journalists. So, you know, Shabir Shah was under house arrest like many of the Kashmiri separatists, and he had escaped. And our drivers told us he will come and give a conference in the old mosque of Old Srinagar, the mosque of Old Srinagar. So everybody went there, you know, like 60, 70, 80 journalists went there. I went to the Ganesh temple. And I was very moved by this guy who, you know, were the last, you know, priest in probably in the whole of the Valley of Kashmir, and their story. And this day I decided that I would do something for the Kashmiri Pandit. You know, that was maybe 99 or 2000, 99, I would say. So I wrote an article in the Hindustan Times a few days later, telling the story of this small temple, and I wrote a series of articles, Hindustan Times, Indian Express, and then I decided to do an exhibition on the Kashmiri Pandit, and I had the support of Shri Ravi Shankar, whom I had known a little bit earlier, and of Mr. Advani, who was then the Deputy Prime Minister of India. That was in 2003, a few years later. So I did an exhibition on the Kashmiri Pandits, and we opened it in Delhi in the Habitat Center, which is a very prestigious place. The lady who was in charge of these exhibition halls didn't know that I was going to do something like that. And when she came the first time to take the photo, she was very angry that it was not a very secular thing, you know. Indians are so stupid sometimes. It was not a very secular thing to do something with the Kashmiri Pandits, the Hindus of Kashmir. Anyway, Mr. Advani, Shri Ravi Shankar opened the exhibition, and so many people came. Dr. Karan Singh came, and the head of Human Rights India came, and so many people came. And some people say, why do you want to rake the past? You know, forget about this, it is done, what is done is done. But I felt it was important. I had made a pledge, and I redeemed that pledge when I did that first exhibition. After my first exhibition on the Kashmiri Pandit, I started studying Indian history, and I came upon Aurangzeb, because Aurangzeb is a very important figure in in India. He has a lot of place in history books, and of course, he's a subject of great controversy. So Aurangzeb is mostly portrayed as a stern, severe, but just emperor who brought glory to India. But when I studied him, actually, Aurangzeb was a very intelligent and meticulous emperor. And he lived very long. For those that he died when he was 80, which is very old for this time. And he was very meticulous. Whatever order he passed, he had them written down in Farsi, and he would put himself the emperor's seal, and they're preserved. Whatever Aurangzeb has done, whether it was, the raising of the Somnath temple or forbidding Hindus from riding elephants and horses or palanquins, it is there preserved. There are two museums which keep Aurangzeb's seals, firmans, edicts. One is in Jaisalmer in Rajasthan, and the other one is in Hyderabad. So I took the service of a historian, Professor Bhatnagar, who was a specialist in the medieval period, especially Aurangzeb and Shivaji Maharaj. And I had access to the chief minister of Rajasthan, who knew me and knew some of my books, Mrs. Scindia. And I met her with my professor, and she gave us access to where the seals of Aurangzeb were preserved. So my professor chose some of them, and we got them translated into Hindi and English. And upon the seals, using the orders in the seals, we had a team of painters in Jaipur doing the ancient miniature style painting for each of these edicts that we have chosen. For example, for the raising of the Mathura temple, the Krishna Mathura temple was raised on the order of Aurangzeb. I forgot in which year. And Aurangzeb ordered that the murtis, the deities of the Krishna temple, will be buried under the steps of the mosque, which was built on top, as happened in Ayodhya, I believe, was built on top of this Mathura temple. So we have a painting of this showing the raising of the Krishna Mathura temple and the murtis being buried under the steps, all in ancient style, without any comment. And next to the painting, there would be the order of Aurangzeb, the original order, the scan of the original order of Aurangzeb. So that this was a very powerful exhibition, which we never said anything. We didn't make any comment. We never said Aurangzeb was a monster. We just showed him as it was. And indeed, he was, for instance, he used to stitch these caps, these Muslim caps. He used to stitch them himself, for charity, to give money for charity. He wrote his will himself, by hand. So we have a painting of him writing his will. We have a pitch painting of him, stitching this cap. So he was a very meticulous, intelligent emperor, but very ruthless, of course. He was extremely cruel, not only to Hindus, but also to his own family. He had his brother Darashuko, who was a remarkable Sufi scholar, who believed that Islam had some roots in the Vedas and the Upanishads. Darashuko had the Upanishad translated. He translated himself the Upanishads into Farsi. So he was very cruel. He had him beheaded for apostasy. He had his father, Shah Jahan, in prison and poisoned. He had his sons, in prison. He was a very, very extremely cruel man, extremely, did a lot of damage, did a lot of acidic things, as they say in India. So we had this exhibition, and again, we opened it in Habitat Center, again with Mr. Advani and Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. And this was a more difficult exhibition because, of course, Indian history is a very touchy subject, and Indians themselves, Hindu themselves, again would say, why you want to rake the past, it just raises up communal issues. But I felt that unless the people know their own history, unless the nation knows their own history, there is something that they are lacking. And Swami Vivekananda himself said, unless you know your own history, you repeat the same mistakes. So I felt it was important that Aurangzeb be portrayed in history books as he was, according to his own deeds, not according to what I think, according to what I said, but according to his own deeds. So hence this exhibition, this powerful exhibition, which we opened in Delhi. Then I took it to Bombay, I took it to Bangalore, and then to Chennai. And in Chennai, it ran into trouble because in Chennai, there was a gentleman whose ancestor were named by Aurangzeb, and he's called the Nawab of Arcot. He has a palace in Chennai. He has no power, but he has, in the hierarchy, he's third in after the governor and the chief minister is the third. So when the Queen of England came to Madras, he was there to receive her also, Nawab of Arcot. So he came. There was an article in the Hindu, and he came to visit the exhibition in Chennai, and he was very offended by the exhibition, particularly by the painting which shows the raising of the Somnath temple. And next day, from the nearby mosque, some Muslims came and started protesting. In those days, Mr. Karunanidhi was the chief minister, and his son Stalin was known, of course, to the Nawab court, who called him personally, and Stalin sent one of his highest-ranking officers who had killed the king of sandalwood smuggling, I forgot his name, to close the exhibition. So I was in Delhi, and there were two old ladies guarding the exhibition. The police came and took the old ladies in jail and started packing and throwing to the ground some of the paintings. So I flew from Delhi the same day, arrived the evening, and got the ladies released from jail. But it took me 6 months to get back this exhibition on Aurangzeb, which the police kept because it was communal. I got it back, finally it was heartbroken. I brought it to Pondicherry, got it repaired there. In those days we used to do the paintings, we used to frame them with glass, and this caused some damage to the painting, so got them restored, framed them in plexiglass, and sent them to Pune, because I knew already that Pune, Sri Ravi Shankar had given me some land near the airport, and I knew I would start a museum there. So indeed, when I came to Pune, again, I had one of these experiences like the one I had in Delhi, that I had been to this place before, and I knew about Shivaji Maharaj. I'm a Frenchman, and Napoleon is our hero, of course. We consider, Napoleon to be not only a great warrior, but a great statesman. He did many laws which are still in use today. He was a great man. So in France, actually, I lived near his tomb in Paris. There is a huge place called Les Invalides in Paris. My parents had a flat there just nearby, and as a Frenchman, I was brought up in the home of Napoleon. So I knew about Shivaji Maharaj, and I knew that he was the Napoleon of India. And so I went to Pune to teach a course, an art pranayama course, art living course, and in Pune I had this experience again that, as I said, that I know this place, I've been there, and I felt Shivaji Maharaj's spirit, very, very abstract to say that, but I felt something, that there was something of Shivaji Maharaj still present in Pune. And when I had some time after my course, and I asked my driver to take me to the main museum, thinking that it would be Shivaji Maharaj. Like in Paris, we have the biggest museum in Paris with the Louvre is about Napoleon. And so the driver took me to the main museum called the Kelka Museum, and there was not a single exhibit on Shivaji Maharaj. Because, of course, for reasons that I'm not going to get into here, the politicians of India are taken hold of Shivaji Maharaj and used it for their own purpose. A bit like the Aryan invasion, which never happened, has been, used by the Tamil Nadu politician to say that, we are the Dravidians, we are more ancient than Aryan, more ancient than Sanskrit, our language is the first. We're the first. We were pushed back by the Aryans. We never came to India. So in the same way, politicians in Maharashtra have divided the followers of Shivaji Maharaj. Some of them are Buddhists, some of them are followers of Ambedkar. Most of the scholars are Brahmins, so they have used them to, like to fight each other. So Shivaji Maharaj has become a little bit of touchy subject, and in that main museum of Pune, there was nothing about Shivaji Maharaj. Everything else, a lot of money, a lot of artifacts. So I was very shocked, and that day I thought, it came again to me like an intuition, that I should do something for Shivaji Maharaj. So hence, I started doing many exhibitions after Aurangzeb, on Shivaji Maharaj, of course, on Aliyabai, on Maharana Pratap, so many great people of India, on the Vedas. And when I had so many, Sri Sri gave me that land near Pune, and I started this museum. It's a long story, the museum, because it's a very difficult project. I'm not going to get into it here. Just to say that my entire journey in India, from the moment I came to Delhi till today, with all my faults and all my, my lack of receptivity, from time to time, I felt that I have been there, I know this place, I should do this. Of course, I did it in my way. The museum was a difficult task. I had to fight. It was not like a noble thing that just came down from heaven. I had to fight it out, and I have to fight it out. It's a difficult task. So being a Frenchman, being a little fearless, being outside caste, and having some anger in me, which makes me dislike profoundly injustice. I was able to, start a museum. It's not a world-class museum, but there are 16 pavilions today. There's a beautiful small temple dedicated to Mother India and Shivaji Maharaj. There's a library. So there is a museum. It's free. It's a seva project, but very difficult. So just to say that, at every point, India has given me, and I feel I have a debt towards India, and I'm only repaying my debt, and whatever I know today has come from this country. I consider myself to be someone who has touched the truth, but not a yogi. I can't say that I missed my life, because I could have become more of a yogi, more of a person who has yogic qualities. I have touched upon these. I have met many great saints and simple people also. The simple people of India, whom I first met when I started freelancing as a journalist, I felt that many of them, the simple people, the rural people, many of them have yogic qualities, which I felt that I as a Westerner had missed. The very simple people of India, so many of them are still gentleness and what is called tolerance, but which is actually accepting that God manifests himself or herself, in different ways and different times and the different names, So the people of, that was my very, very first input, and it never left me, even when I became a political journalist, that the rural people of India, they have in their genes a knowledge. In the West, we think, oh, we have to be good, we have to do charity, we should not steal, we should not kill. But the people of India, they have it in their genes. I'm not talking about the people in Delhi, which is a very arrogant city, far away from everything. I'm talking about the people I met first when I started freelancing in Tamil Nadu, in Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, and which are there also in other parts of India, in Maharashtra, etc. But they have knowledge in the genes, simple knowledge, but very precious knowledge, very precious knowledge. So I don't consider myself a yogi. At the same time, I don't feel I missed upon being more yogic in my life, though I should be, and I hope I will be in the years to come, because I have taken a kind of karma yoga of work, work of defending Hindus and writing and defending India and doing that museum. So yes, my question has been answered, though I could have gone deeper maybe into these questions in a more yogic manner. And about the first part of the question, anger is also it's also an engine. I couldn't have done all what I have done without some anger about injustice. Well, the injustice I saw in Kashmir against the Hindus were totally innocent people. I mean, maybe there was a karma about what happened to the Hindus of Kashmir, not for me to judge, but the anger I felt on this injustice of people being chased out of their homeland and become refugees, because they did become refugees in the beginning. The Hindus of Kashmir had to live in refugees camp in Jammu and even in Delhi. My wife and I visited some of these camps and interviewed some of these Hindus in the camps in Delhi. I felt anger towards it, and that anger, triggered my action to do an exhibition on the Kashmiri Pandits, to open it in Delhi, to take it all over India, to fight for it when, the police in Chennai took it and closed it down, and finally to put it it's there in the museum now. It's one of the permanent exhibition in our Shivaji Maharaj Museum of Indian History in Pune. Yes, that anger helped me. Sometimes I feel anger is not good, but sometimes it is good. As in my case, when I feel that India also at the moment, for instance, the way the Western media is portraying India in the fight against COVID. We need to speak a few words about COVID-19, about coronavirus, the way the media, the BBC, the CNN, the French Le Monde are portraying India, are portraying Mr. Modi and the Ayodhya inauguration. I have been to Ayodhya. I was there when the Ayodhya mosque was raised. So I know Ayodhya. I know that Ayodhya is a totally Hindu place, and in the midst there was that deserted mosque because nobody went to that mosque. There is a twin city of Ayodhya called Faizabad, and in Faizabad there is a big mosque which is attended by most Muslims who live in Faizabad. But Ayodhya is a very Hindu, very Hindu, very ancient Hindu place, and you had this deserted mosque in the middle. So when it was raised again, I went against the current. Again, Mark Tully and all these journalists who said, the Black Day of India, and I felt no, that this mosque was an affront to the Hindus. It was meant to insult the Hindus permanently for 500 years, and this raising was something which was harmless because nobody died in that raising. It went down in a few hours. Nobody died, but after that there were huge riots in Mumbai, and the 2,000 bombs were planted with the support of Pakistan and the knowledge of maybe other Gulf countries. And so there was a huge revenge, which was costly in terms of lives. So I wrote about this, and anger was there. So anger helped me. So sometimes anger is good, sometimes it is bad. I think Hindus have lost courage. They lost the spirit of, of sacrifice, of being a Kshatriya. There is a lot of fear. You know what Mahatma Gandhi said about the Hindus and Muslims? The Muslims are bullies and Hindus are cowards. It's a harsh statement, but there is quite some truth in it. So the thing about Hindus saying that every religion is the same, and if we get slapped, this is good. I'll slap you on the right face and let me show you my left face so I can be slapped. Makes me angry actually, because India has suffered so much at the end of invasion, and still today is suffering. There is a conversion in very unethical manner. Christian conversions are happening in Tamil Nadu. I saw it after the tsunami, and in Andhra Pradesh, there's a Christian prime minister in Andhra Pradesh, so there is some freedom for missionaries to come and convert. I'm a born Catholic, but to say that my God is the only true one, as the Christians say, and still believe today. And it is my duty to convert you to the true religion, because you are having false belief. You are adoring false gods. You are in a lie. You are in untruth. it's a violence. You know? People talk about racism today, but this is one of the worst forms of racism, the religious racism of Christians who think that Hindus and other countries are inferior to them, and which still motivates, you know, even you see the way Indologists, Western journalists cover India, there is that unconscious feeling of superiority that my civilization is superior to yours. I'm a Westerner who think that, you know, I've come to a country which has a superior knowledge, but most Westerners, whether it is Sonia Gandhi or Mother Teresa, feel that I have to bring something to India because I come from a superior civilization. So this is racism, you know. And then, of course, Islam has the same belief that my God is the only true God, and it is my duty to convert the whole world to Allah by violence, if necessary. So it was openly done, you know, for centuries. You know, Muslims, Islamic invaders came from, you know, all over the Islamic world, and you know, and preyed upon India, you know, in a very violent, you know, and destructive manner. You know, the trauma today, Hindus are scared because they have bear the greatest genocide in the world. I don't know, from the Hindu Kush till Mumbai, 2011, people say, you know, at least 100 million Hindu die. So there is a trauma. So for Hindus to say that all religions are the same is stupid. I'm sorry, you know, it's very stupid. And to say that, you know, we are all the same and, you know, God is the same. It's not true. It's not true. God is not the same. You know? God is not the same. There is one religion that says, you know, God takes many faces and manifests himself or herself at different times, you know, as a Hindu belief. And there are other religions, you know, like Christianity and Islam, who said there's only one God, you know, there's only one life, you know, and the Christians think that you die and then you go to heaven or hell or purgatory according to what you've done. And the Muslims think that if you kill other people, you go to heaven and you have 27 virgins. These are very simplistic knowledge, you know. There's a gradation in life, there is a hierarchy in life. Not that everybody is the same, every religion is the same, every human being is the same. No, this is just, you know, simplicity. And Hindus have the simplicity to think that, you know, so it opens India to many enemies. The Christians are converting India now, but also the Marxists, you know, think that, you know, there is no religion and religion is a poison. So most of Indian intellectuals and Hindu intellectuals are Marxist. Most of journalists are Marxist. They want to cut off from this knowledge which I find very precious. You know, and I find that manifested in gurus and yogis and also simple people. So many Hindus want to think that it, starting from Mr. Nehru, that it's a harmful knowledge, that we have to become more westernized. So the westernization of India is also a great, great danger, you know, through television and, you know, TV channels that, you know, if you take that cream, you'll become whiter. You know, if you wear a suit and a tie, you'll become a man. You know, people of India are simple and innocent. You know, they're open to this thing. The westernization of India is a great, great danger. So Hindus to say that, you know, everybody is the same and, you know, we should be peaceful, and this is absolutely criminal. You know, Hindus have to stand. This is the last living knowledge in the world. It was there in Egypt. It was there in Greece. It was there in Mesopotamia. It was there in many places. People knew in the ancient times. Even in Christianity, they knew about reincarnation. They knew some of these truths were known all over the world. Today it is dead. It has been killed all over the world, mostly by Christian missionaries and armies and Islamic, you know, armies and mullahs, you know, and it is alive in India. It's so precious. So for Hindus to say, oh, doesn't matter, you know, we're all the same, and let Kashmir go and let Tamil Nadu go, and this is criminal, man. This is criminal. This is a lack of courage, a lack of, you know, lack of dignity, a lack of heart. So I am against it, you know. And I find whenever Hindus say that all religions are the same, they're criminals. I'm sorry to say. Thank you.